There's no particular, I'm David, I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Dave.
Yeah, so step 3. The reason I wanted us to be able to laugh a little bit is because I was reminded in one of my last groups, not the last one, but the second to last one, that this is a lofty step. This is a lofty idea that we have to dig into, right? Step 3, we're making a commitment, right? So for just a few seconds, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, okay? And just listen to the sound of my voice. Even if you don't like the sound of my voice, just try to listen to it. Aw, thank you. That's so nice. So if you just close your eyes for a couple of seconds here, I'm going to read a line from step 3 prayer. Now, I'm going to ask you to really think about this line. Think about what it's asking of us, okay? Are you guys ready? I'm looking around. I see eyes closed. Some people peeking. No peeking. No peeking. God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Whoo! You can open your eyes. Like, how powerful is that sentence? It's getting us in a position to surrender. Now, it's fitting that Dad wanted to do the step 11 prayer tonight, because I almost cheated and did step 11 and step 3, because I really love the prayer. And it's fitting because that prayer is basically like an end goal, right? And by end goal, I just mean something to aspire to, not necessarily the end of our growth. But it's asking us to get out of the way, right? And now a lot of us don't want to get out of the way. I'm one of those people who doesn't want to get out of the way. I don't want to get out of the way. No, God, I got this, right? And then I get to make a disaster of it and then say, okay, God, you got this, okay? That was all you, God. I'm sorry it didn't work out the way you planned, right? As though somehow I could convince God of what I need and that I know better, right? But I'm human, and this is why this is lofty. So my friend who took my group a couple months ago, we're doing step 3, we're going over it. This is a pathway group. And I start reading the prayer, and this is why I read just the first sentence of that prayer, is because as soon as I said that prayer, my friend pipes up and says, whoa, dude, that's a big, lofty goal, right? How am I supposed to surrender to something if I don't know what it is? Or if I don't trust it? You got a good point, right? It's lofty. I'm saying, God, I offer myself to you. Do with me what you will, right? When was the last time we offered ourselves to someone and said, do with me what you will? What did they do? Chances are pretty good it wasn't healthy, right? So we have this in the back of our mind that every time we turned around and trusted someone or some institution, that institution or person did not necessarily handle things the way we had hoped, right? Now oftentimes they just handled it the way they could, for however sick they might have been. Well, we're not talking about people now. We're not talking about institutions. Okay? We're talking about a spiritual connection that is an unending resource. Bless you. It's an unending resource for us. So it talks about it in the big book. It talks about the bridge between, I think it's belief and faith, if I'm quoting it somewhat correctly. I'm terrible at remembering that stuff. And I didn't write it down, obviously, right? But building that bridge from belief to faith actually takes faith. It takes faith to get to faith. Tiny increments at a time. Because it is lofty. It's humongous. And I know lots of people who study and pray and have a really deep and wonderful connection with their higher power, whatever that looks like for them. And it is still lofty. It is still something they have to do continuously. And the reason is because what happens once I say the prayer, God, I offer myself to thee, all of a sudden when I stop the prayer, my brain kicks in again and says, oh, I offer this part to you. But this stuff over here, I'm going to keep that. Because this is the stuff that I don't think you need to worry about. And most of that stuff is not good for me. Most of the things I don't think God needs to worry about are things that I want to do. It's like if you've ever had a sponsor and you said, you know what? I'm just not going to ask my sponsor this question because I'm pretty sure what he's going to say. So I'm going to go ahead and do it, and then I'll ask him afterwards what he thinks, right? So when he's bailing me out of jail, and I have to explain to him what happened, then all of a sudden it reminds me I have to go back to God, right? Because my natural instinct, and I'm not speaking for everyone else here, but my natural instinct is to not necessarily want to share all that stuff with God, right? So this prayer is an act of surrender. We're not just surrendering our lives, but we're surrendering our mind, our relationships, our work, okay, our families, our friends, everything that makes us up, makes us whole. We are trying to surrender that to this power. That is lofty. I mean, my friend stopped me in my tracks when he said that, because I thought, I had never even considered why this is so hard. I just did it because like when I first came into the program, everyone says, just do it. Just do it. Even if you don't mean it, do it. So I started to do it, right? So I took for granted how lofty it is. Until, of course, he reminded me that I am an imperfect being in an imperfect world, right? Trying the best I can, like everyone else here. Now, just because we get up here and we talk about these lofty ideas, hopefully none of you think I'm perfect, right? Okay, well, some of you do probably. Well, that's because he knows me, so he knows I'm not perfect, right? Thank you. So none of us are, though. That's the thing. We're just human beings, just like you, right? What we're trying to do is be conduits for God. That's it. That's what we're trying to do. What you're trying to do in any program you might be in is become a conduit for your higher power, for that program. Like AA is awesome. It says things like attraction, not promotion. What do you think that means? Do good stuff, right? Be honest and do good stuff, basically. That's really essentially what the church is saying. Now, the church has kind of messed it up a little bit. I'm not going to lie to you. Right? But that's people, that's not God. Right? So when Dad mentioned it's all about God, oh, it feels so good. It's not about me. Right? It's not about me. I want to get out of the way and hope that message comes through to inspire and hopefully bring hope. Right? That's the idea. And I'm thinking that's probably what preachers were supposed to do from the beginning of time. Right? Send hope, love, peace. Right? Unfortunately, things get messed up when people are involved, right? Because we're all imperfect. One of the things I want to tell you about is a story. So I kind of got cut off from my planning for this message when I was going to start it with a joke. What does a Buddhist, a Christian, and an atheist think when they go to a Buddhist priest speaking? That's a good joke, but I didn't have a punchline because we all thought the same thing. I went to this thing on Friday night that was hosted by a Buddhist priest. A gentle, wonderful human being. I didn't have to hear much of what he had to say to know that. He definitely practices, right? So, and what he said about his practice is the same as our practice. Whether it's in a church or in a meeting room or anywhere you go, that you're starting to learn a new practice. One of the people in the audience asked him, how do you stay committed to something that in some cases you must think some of these rules are so dumb, right? And he laughed and he said, well, here's the thing about commitment. He said, commitment is magic, right? I was like, I get goosebumps again thinking about it because when he said it, it really hit me like a ton of bricks. Commitment is magical, right? I don't have to commit to eating chocolate cake. I love chocolate cake. I will eat that chocolate cake all day long. There is no downside to chocolate cake. Don't talk to me about disease, about heart disease and all that stuff with sugar, and I don't care. I love chocolate cake. I don't have to be committed to eat it. But I do have to be committed to practice a new set of principles. I do have to be committed to going into something that is so much bigger than each of us, right? That takes commitment. And that's what his answer was to the guy who asked him, how do you stay committed? He says, well, I stay committed because it's a hard practice, but it's beautiful. just because it's hard doesn't mean it's bad. This that we are engaged in, whatever your program is, whatever theory you follow, whatever path you walk, if we're committed, it's hard. And it takes commitment. And I think, when I think back about when I first came into AA many, many moons ago, right? I remember people saying it's hard. It gets hard. And I'm like, can't be any harder than waking up in your own vomit, right? But I was wrong. It's harder, because that's easy for me. Much easier than this, right? And each person that I've worked with through the years, whether part of 12-step programs or other fellowships, whatever it might be, okay, they commit, they talk about some of the difficulties with committing. We don't have to commit to things that are easy and things that we like, right? Because like chocolate cake, I'll eat that all day long. I don't need to be committed. I'll have to be committed to not eat the chocolate cake because I like it so much, right? Much like we had to be committed when we put the drink and the drug down, we have to be committed. And I don't mean like everything is serious. That's why I played that laughing camel before we started. Because honestly, part of committing means taking things as they come and not taking ourselves too seriously, right? Because this is hard. Sometimes it's hard. Is it better than what it was like before? Probably for most of us, right? That doesn't mean there's not hard times. And I know that through the years I've experienced many hard days in recovery. Hard days where I thought, I don't know if I'm going to make it, right? But because somewhere along the lines, a part of my brain committed to this, it allows myself to get out of the way, right? Because like many of the Buddhists say, what you are seeking is causing you to seek. Okay? So whatever your vision or idea of a higher power is, that's what's pushing you. That little voice inside here. Right? The little voice that says, man, just try to do a little bit better. Just try to do a little bit better. Right? That's the voice of your higher power talking to you. And I remember that because someone very close to me, I'm not going to point any fingers at him, but someone very close to me, when I first came into sobriety, and I said, Dad, I don't know how to hear God. I don't know what to listen for. I had never listened for God, so how would I know, right? The only two voices I heard in my head through the years, before I came into program, or before I sobered up, right, was go get lit, okay, and go do some bad stuff because it makes you feel good, right? Those are the voices I had. And then in recovery, some of those voices continued. So I was like, Dad, I'm going bonkers. How do we tell the difference? And then he said, that still, quiet voice. Always gentle. Never judgmental. Especially about you, right? Always gentle. Never judgmental, only speaks in love. I was like, all right, I can figure that out. So I knew God wasn't talking to me for a while, because I was like, that's not loving, that's not kind. But I figured, then I learned some things as time went on that I had to actually initiate the conversation, because God doesn't kick the door in, right? The still, quiet voice and that gentle knock, as our stained glass says behind me, right? That gentle knocking, that is God, right? Now, is there a tangible person at the door to my brain? I sure hope not, because I'm in trouble if I see that, right? But that voice is very tangible when I can clear away some of the wreckage, right? So step 3 is not so much a one-time deal, at least not for me, and not for people that I've seen really engage and commit to the process. And it's not just for alcoholics or addicts, it's for all of us as humans, right? And that was one of the wonderful things I heard on Friday night from the Buddhist priest, was every one of us practices something, right? And this Buddhist priest, he wasn't in recovery, right? But he said every one of us practices something. It's just that sometimes what we practice is not helpful. It's not healthy. to us, right? And to those who know us. So what it's all about, as the 12-step program point out so eloquently, right? It's about finding something that you understand and then surrendering to that slowly over time. I could not do it all at once. I was not ready. I still am not. There are still some things I like chocolate cake, right? Obviously, right? I have the body for a chocolate cake guy, right? But as time goes on, it gets a little bit easier, a little bit easier. We can surrender a little bit more and a little bit more. And so one of the other things, and this really tied into something that I've always, a quote from Bill W. that I hold dear to my heart, and that when someone says, well, what do you want, Dave? I try, again, not perfect, but I try to reach to my brain and find this quote because it's so powerful. True ambition is not what we thought it was. True ambition is the profound desire. Profound desire. That's like a cellular level desire, right? A profound desire to live usefully and walk humbly under the grace of God. How powerful is that, right? That's amazing and lofty too, just like the step 3 prayer, right? But if we turn our brain from what we used to have ambition towards, and not everything, because some of our ambitions are God-given, some of our skills, right? Our talents, the things we love, those things were provided to us inside. That's why not everybody plays professional sports. Or not everybody does, not everybody's a lawyer, not everybody's a policeman, not everybody's a soldier, right? Everybody has a different purpose, right? And this statement from Bill W. is powerful because it tries to help us understand what true ambition needs to be for us to live useful, productive lives. So I'm going to read another thing out of the 12 and 12. I actually did write this down. Still more wonderful is the feeling that we do not have to be specially distinguished among our fellows in order to be useful and profoundly happy. That word again, profound. Happy to our soul, right? Not happy because we're lit, but happy to our soul, where things can't get when we get lit, right? They can't get in there. Not many of us can be leaders of prominence, nor do we wish to be. Yeah, he said that right. Service gladly rendered, obligations squarely met, troubles well accepted or solved with God's help, the knowledge that at home or in the world outside, we are partners in a common effort. That's amazing stuff. And so as I come to a close, I want to leave you with a question for each of you, for yourselves, just to ask. Again, not my question. I totally stole it from a Buddhist priest. He wasn't even looking, I just took it. He was busy meditating and I took it. I had one eye open. I'm terrible at meditation, so I'm going to look at you. Right? Ask yourselves this question. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Not here in church. Well, that too, maybe, because maybe someone twisted your arm and made you come. Oh, Dave's talking. I don't want to go. Okay? But what are you doing here? In general, what is your purpose? What speaks to your soul? We have this design for living, but what is it that we really want to connect to? And how do we want to connect with that? So in closing, what are you doing here? Thank you.